Keir Starmer has stated that things will get worse before they get better, beginning with energy price hikes. The energy price cap will rise to an average annual £1,717 from October, the industry regulators confirms as the clock ticks down to the loss of winter fuel payments for millions of pensioners. The new figure represents a 10% a year or £12 per month leap in the typical sum households face paying for gas and electricity when using direct debit. Its decision means the cap, which is adjusted every 3 months and limits what suppliers can charge per unit of energy, will remain around £500 up on the average annual bill levels seen before Russia's invasion of Ukraine. Now, this is off the back of Labour scrapping winter fuel payments, for pensioners, which means older people will be hit twice, essentially. Now, this is actually a broken promise from Labour, as they said they would keep energy prices down. Now, some have defended Labour by saying, well, there's no time frame and, things will get worse before they get better. However, Labour did promise bills would freeze immediately. You can see right here that this was a promise made by the party. Labour would freeze gas and electricity prices immediately to give people breathing space over the winter. This means the domestic energy price cap would stay at its current level of £1,971 from October to April. This is in comparison to the increases of £3,582 in October and £4,266 in January that have been projected by Cornwall Insights. Another promise that has been ditched. I want to get your thoughts and also your response to Keir Starmer saying that things are going to get worse before they get better.
Well, thanks for having me on again, Curtis. It's a pleasure as always. Yeah, where to start with that one? Well, I mean, things are going to get worse before they get better. Despite the broken promises, I will defend that to a degree. I think we've just had 14 years of complete and utter mayhem from the Conservatives that year on year seems to have gotten worse than the year before. And I do think it's unfair to expect things to just suddenly magically get better because we've got a new government, regardless of who that government is, regardless of how left-wing or otherwise that government is. That said, we've got more broken promises. Again, which, I mean, we're to expect from Keir Starmer, I suppose, and it's something that he's kind of shown that, we are to expect from him. Broken promises, time and time again. And I think what's frustrating with this story is that you've got the cap that's been taken from the pensioners. You've got the increase in the bills, despite the fact that it clearly states in the manifesto that they are going to freeze them. And like you said in your introduction, for older people, it's essentially being hit twice. And they can say all they want. Oh, yeah, well, the Tories have left us in a terrible mess and things are going to get worse before they get better. And that is true. Like, we can't deny how bad things have been. I mean, we've spent time, on this platform and on our own platforms talking about how terrible things have been. So obviously things are bad, but I do think it's sort of being used as a bit of a get out as well, because Starmer can make a promise in his manifesto, say he's going to do something, and when he breaks that promise, because he's only just gotten into power, he can say, oh, well, it's the Tories' fault, we'll blame them, it's because things are worse than we thought, it's because we can't afford to do what we wanted to do, so now it's not, it's not our problem anymore. And it kind of absolves them of any responsibility. But the fact of the matter is, they made a promise to freeze the energy bills where they were. They said they were going to freeze them, that it wasn't going to go up, and now it's going up. And some could argue, well, it's only a small amount, it's £12 a month, but that's a lot for a lot of people. £12 a month is a hell of a lot of money. And it's the principle of the thing of, well, if they're not going to keep this promise, how many other promises aren't they going to keep as well?
Charlotte, I mean, as Callum pointed out, we've had 14 years of destruction or austerity, but you can't then combat that with more austerity. And it is a complete excuse to say, well, we think that things were worse than we expected. But that means, okay, well, we're just going to cut more then. But that's what got us into this mess in the first place, wasn't it?
Yeah, I mean, it's Thank you for having me. I think it's like there's two things, right? Like they were talking about austerity, like it's the link of the austerity feeling of like, well, we have to cut back. Like we all know now that consistent cuts in the way that they're being done, they haven't paid off before. The thing that I think grinds my gears a little bit more with it is the whole reason the manifesto was like really dry and very light on promises was because they were like, oh no, we've got to be realistic about it, guys. We have to be, there's this like practicality to it. We can't be idealistic. We have to be really serious. That's why we're not going to raise wealth taxes, because we have to be really, really practical here. And then they've got in and they've gone, oh, actually, we even though we were being super careful and super practical, and that's why it wasn't very impressive, we're actually going to make it even less impressive by going back on the things that we did promise. Like it feels like, how far down are we going to keep going? Are we just going to keep finding new issues? It does feel like an excuse. It feels like that whole kind of rhetoric of it being like a practical issue, like we need to be realistic about this. It just feels like, well, why were you pitching your manifesto as being practical and realistic? Did you just not think it through to the extent that you did? Like, it just feels I'm a little bit frustrated by it, I'd say.
Yeah, I mean,
are we putting? Oh, go on.
God, no. You go ahead.
Well, I was just going to say, are we putting sort of too much hope into a new government by expecting anything other than this? A number of weeks after an election. I mean, we've had the election in July. Parliament went into recess for the summer. 2-3 weeks later tops. No legislation's really been passed yet. They've not had a chance to actually do anything practically. The only votes that they've had are on the King's Speech, where, let's not forget, they suspended 7 MPs for voting to, heaven forbid, do something to deal with child poverty. But apart from that, which is quite a big thing now I say it, but they've not really had time to do anything, certainly not at a parliamentary level. And, to play devil's advocate a bit, are we maybe expecting too much too soon?
Well, I mean, I don't think that we're expecting much, or we're hopeful
Yeah, I was going to say, if it helps,
about Labour doing something that they've already said they would do. I mean, like, I think we all have set our expectations that Labour aren't going to put services into public ownership, right? We know they're not going to do that. They're not going to introduce a wealth tax. But if they're saying, oh, we are going to freeze prices, by the way, then that's just simply what they're saying themselves. So it's the bare minimum to say, well, we're going to hold you to account on the things you're going to do, because that manifesto, my God, it was more about what wasn't in there than what was in there. But the very little that was in there, at least could you not do that? And I just think, look, if you say to people, voters, look, you need to kick out the Tories because they've made your lives worse. Vote for us because we're going to make sure that the cost of living won't impact you. We're going to make sure that you're going to be better off. And now actively overseeing
it will actually
be
worse.
make people worse off, then what difference do they propose, even on a moderate Labour Party, what different do they propose to the Conservatives when the exact same thing is happening right now? I mean, Ofgem said we're going to remove the cap or increase the cap anyway under a Conservative government. So the Tories have won this election. This is what will be happening. Now, Labour's in power. Absolutely zero difference there.
But would you expect anything different, though? I mean, realistically, when even during the election campaign, people like us were saying, Labour don't keep the promises. Starmer's U-turning left, right and centre, to the point where I think there was one policy, I can't remember which one it was, but I'm sure there was one thing before the election that he U-turned on so many times that I think he ended up back at the beginning on it, and I can't remember which policy it was. But, like, at an absolute basic level, expecting a new government to keep promises they've made in a manifesto should be a basis, certainly this close after the election. But I'd also really expecting they would. I mean, I know they should, but
yeah, I mean, I'd say on that as well, though, like the thing, like, as you said, like with them expelling people out the party, it was the whole defense that people had was like, well, they were elected on a manifesto and they're not siding with it. Like the 2-child benefit cap wasn't in the manifesto. The things that weren't in the manifesto are being used as a way to almost as an excuse. And then the things that were in there, I think even though there hasn't been that much parliamentary activity, the signs that we have been putting out, like the signals we've seen so far, we've had the extension of the puberty blockers ban. Great. That's what kind of you're sending out just a signal. That was the thing that you wanted to prioritize. And then also talking about increasing policing and having like a standing army. Like the very few things that we have seen come out of the party so far, I haven't really seen any signals that would indicate positive steps in the right direction for certain things. It feels like a lot of kind of show. But even stuff like the ICC potential, when they were deciding whether or not to block it, like in the weeks running up to it, there were like 16 different decisions that were put out there in the media, different briefings that were being given. And it feels like when there's so little being said, it's really easy to get caught up in the few things that they have said and not pay attention to how much is being kind of starved of a story at the moment. Like a lot has been left behind.
This is like bread and butter stuff for the party, isn't it? It's your material needs and it's energy, the cost of living. Like it is the bread and butter. And again, I just don't understand what political strategy are they trying to play here, or there is none. I mean, they're not politically smart, these guys.
The point, because actually, this isn't like, it's not, about taxation of private school fees. It's not about, I mean, I know we're going to talk about like the access pass story in a bit, but it's not even like a political story in that sense. This is about real people and whether they can afford to heat their homes in the winter. And given Labour's position on this issue, I mean, even when this all kicked off with the cost of living crisis, the constant demand for oh god, what was the word they used for the tax on the it's gone out of my head, on the not a wealth tax, what the hell was it on the
I feel like I've forgotten every word.
Someone will tell me in the comment.
On the capital gains tax, was it?
No, on the energy companies.
Windfall tax.
Windfall tax. Thank you. When they even like when they were calling for that, and then there was a version of it that was sort of introduced after everyone else said there needed to be one, but like Labour was sort of pushing for that and calling for that, and they seemed to be doing a lot more when they were in opposition. They then make the promises for, well, we're gonna freeze it. Your energy bills aren't going to go up this winter, and they've not even been in power 6 weeks. And actually, your energy bills are going to go up this winter. But it isn't a political story in the sense of the big scandal. Like you say, it's bread and butter stuff. It's basic cost of living. It's whether
also it was like the core tenet of their campaign was, well, we're going to be honest with you, right? Let's cut to brass tacks here. We're not going to promise things we can't deliver. Jeremy Corbyn's manifesto was like the unfunded Tory manifesto.
So silly.
It was so silly. It was full of things that they can't do. But we're the guys that are going to say, this is what we can do and this is what we can't do. And obviously that was a load of crap from the beginning. We could see that. And we're trying to say to people, this is a load of bollocks, by the way. And Jeremy Corbyn's manifestos were actually fully costed. There was a plan in there. That was their core tenet, was we are going to do the realistic things there, and the things we can't do, we'll tell you we can't do it. The things we can do will cost it. And now 7 weeks in, 8 weeks in, just the bare minimum of saying, well, we're going to keep prices where they are. They're not even, this is the thing, they're not even improving people's lives. They're actively allowing it to get worse, because doing a freeze, introducing a price cap or a freeze, that doesn't improve people's lives. That just keeps it the same. So it's actively getting worse under their watch, and they're not doing it, and they promised it. They lied about lying.
It's like a lieception situation where we're in now. Like I just wanted to say one last thing on the energy thing, because I realized this as you're talking. It's also very weird the way that they're addressing it as like rhetoric, because their big thing in the manifesto as well, aside from smash the gangs and all the other dog whistles, was like the GB energy, which is like, oh, we're going to bring clean energy, renewable energy. The reason that prices are going up, there's a conversation, is because there's a demand for natural gas, right? Like our price cap exists based on the highest possible costing. So renewable energy, if all of our energy was renewable, it would be overall far, far cheaper. The price cap would be a lot lower. Because we have this reliance on natural gas, that's what kind of brings it higher. So if I were them, and I knew that I was having this conversation up and down about like whether or not we should be pushing forward with GB energy, and there were all these talking points coming against us about why we need to keep investing in oil fields, I'd be using this as a starting point to say, we've had to deal with it because the Tories have left this behind, but we're bringing renewable energy in. We're bringing GB energy in. You guys should be excited about that. Like, it's an opportunity for them, surely. I don't really understand why they haven't said that.
It's because, these guys, and I'm talking about Keir Starmer, I'm talking about Richard Reeves, and the whole team behind them do not want to solve the fundamental issues. Now, you correctly pointed out about how if we were to transform our energy systems to renewables, it will be incredibly cheap, even to the point it will become free, because it's using energy as an abundance. Wind is never going to run out. The sun isn't going to just disappear. Obviously, gas being sold through the market. Obviously, there's issues when it comes to the war in Ukraine, for example. That's a scarcity there. So obviously that's how capitalism makes its profits, through scarcity.
Yeah.
To bring energy out of the market and out of scarcity into an abundance, that means you would forever solve the problem. It'll be incredibly cheap or free. But that requires kind of big thinking. And this is not these guys about the Tony Blair Institute, the Labour Together guys. They're not about big ideas or solving the fundamental issues. They've always been about just simply managing the country better. And that's why you don't hear a big, robust policy difference between Tories and the Labour Party, because there is no separation of their ideology. They're the uni party. They believe in the same ideology, but they just go, oh, well, the Tories are really bad at doing the same policies that we're going to
we're going to do capitalism better.
We're going to do capitalism better, and that's all they offer. And
they're not. They're doing it worse. Well, not worse. But they're doing it badly.
Yeah. And that was the point, right? That was the point I tried to make to so many people, that I'm not going to vote Labour, and I'm going to tell people not to vote Labour, vote Green, because for decades, apart from between 2015 and 2019, the Labour Party were essentially saying we're going to do capitalism but better, and they actually kind of offered that. They did have some good policies. They did want to restrict capitalism in a way that is better for people, right? However, under Keir Starmer, it quite literally was, we're going to do capitalism the same, and in some areas probably worse. So for those who are like, oh, well, you supporting the Greens, you're not supporting Labour because you're purist, you're hard left, and you're an ideologue. That wasn't the case. I was like, no, I would take scraps and I would vote for a Labour Party that offers me half a plate of shit, not a full plate of shit. But they were offering me a full plate of shit, and then they were going to smack it on my head. That was it. That was how low the bar was. I'll paint a pretty picture there for you,
Thank you for that.
Okay.
Let's knock my camera over. It's the other thing, like, we're not supposed to be importing crude oil from Russia anyway at this point, right? Like, it's supposed to be sanctioned. We're not even supposed to have this. We're not supposed to be worried about where the oil's coming from. With, like, the Russia thing shouldn't be intervening in it. But apparently there is this, like, little loophole that we're working on, which is like, but we can take the component parts of different parts of oil to them. It just all feels like, it's virtue signaling. It feels like if you, like, France and Spain have had it at different times this year where they've been in negative energy prices. Like, they don't know what to keep. Their problem is, how do they keep this energy whilst it's here? And in the UK, it's like, well, hands are tied. No choice anymore.
Well, it's worth pointing out that
it's
worth pointing out that in France, obviously, their energy is nationalised, and I think when the cost of energy really hit everybody, theirs went up by like 4%, and they still had people in the streets like protesting and rioting, whereas us British people, like, apart from, unless you're a racist that want to go to take to the streets and start burning hotels on fire, right? Most people are like, I'm not going to get out on the street, even if our material conditions have been so solely destroyed by either party. We're like, yeah, I guess that's just how it is, isn't it? We don't have that mentality to go out and like, no, this is not good enough. Whereas France are like, fuck that, 2%, no.
Oh no, it's crazy. It's just frustrating. But that's part of it. That's what they want from us. They want us to be tired and bored and miserable. It's like a toxic relationship.
Even the GB energy thing's not completely all it's set out to be either. Even that was when what they sort of announced it initially and made it out to be isn't actually what it is behind the scenes when you unpick it and work out how they're doing it. And I feel like I am beginning to wonder how much of this is sort of posturing to the right people to try and win votes to get elected. Yeah, we'll sort your energy bills out because we're better than them. We'll do, as opposed to actual, let's sit down and work out what we actually need to do in order to fix it. Because even the suggestions that they've made, they're not bloody doing.
It's not even, they made shit promises and now they've broken them.
But this thing, because of Rachel Reeves's fiscal rules, and I bring this up almost every single time, but it's like the fundamental driving force behind this current Labour Party is the fiscal rules. And she's boxed herself and the party into a corner because they said, we're not going to spend any money if we don't have the money, essentially. Obviously, it's a load of shit that the economy is like a household budget. But she says, if we can't find that £1 or penny, whatever it is, we're not going to spend it. And that means, well, they're going to have to spend money on trying to keep people's energy bills down because they're going to obviously have to cop the excess. And they can't do that because of these stupid fiscal rules.
And I mean, it's brilliant because, sorry to interrupt you, but just on what we're talking about here, I was just looking because I was interested to know whether Labour actually have like a view on this that they've officially put out, like what their excuse is for this. And I've just found, I mean, it's BBC, but I've just found the perfect headline: Labour and Tories blame each other for energy bill rise.
Oh, I love that.
It's the Spider-Man meme.
Ed Miliband say it is literally the Spider-Man meme. Ed Miliband saying that it's due to the Conservatives' failure to invest in renewables. Like, right,
but that's also the problem with Labour because they've watered down their £28 billion pledge, because that 28 billion green prosperity plan, I actually praise them. Like, I mean, this channel went hard on the Labour Party before the election, right? But when it came to this policy, I was like, this is a really, really good policy because it was also a growth-led policy because they were going to use the state, spend money, create jobs, invest, and also not completely transform energy systems to renewables, but it was a start. And then they watered that down. So Ed Miliband, the Conservatives are to blame for this. You're the one in power. Do something. It's like Joe Biden when he tweets like something. Oh, well, this is bad. What, we should ban assault weapons in America. It's like, you are literally the president.
But he's saying it's the Conservatives' fault because they didn't invest in renewables, right? Now, the shadow energy secretary is saying that cheap non-renewable energy is what needs to be prioritized over carbon reduction targets.
Where is that?
This winter.
Who said that? That's
extra
crazy.
coal?
Yeah, that's Claire.
We just need to find the cheap non-renewable energy. Oh, the cheap oil. The stuff that's just lying around out the stuff we haven't looked at yet.
Yeah, burn. If you're feeling cold this winter, burn your duvet. That'll keep you warm at night.
Burn your house down.
Yeah, that'll keep you warm.
I mean, the thing is, though, it's like, obviously I don't support fracking in any way, but they're doing the worst of both worlds, right? They're doing bad, they're using bad energy or harmful energy, but also it's not sovereign to us. We don't have control over it. They could turn around, and again, I don't think they should, but they could turn around and say, we're going to focus our efforts on fracking in this country, and it's our own energy. Now, that's what the political right say. That's what reforms say. And actually, again, it's not a good policy, but in terms of rhetoric, that kind of makes sense to people because they're saying, well, why are we importing foreign gas when we could just frack it in our own country? And we would have more control. But obviously, the way out of this is to just simply invest in renewables. But again, fiscal rules, they can't spend any money, even though, and as all three of us know, when you invest in technology, right, the costs come down in the long run. It's good for the country overall. But they won't do that. Again, they're so opposed to state-led investment. It's crazy. Yeah. But no, I do love the sort of Spider-Man meme with them too, though. It's like the Tories criticised Labour for years, saying, "Oh, they're spending too much or they're bad in the economy," and then Labour turn around and say the Tories are spending too much and they're bad in the economy. It's like it's a fucking circus.
Silly. They're as silly as each other. I was just going to say, there's a really good point from Becca in the chat, who's just said about the problem that we have with all of this is that even if it's kind of a convoluted pathway to just funneling more taxes into private contracts, because you have because whatever happens, these bills are going to go up. People aren't going to be able to afford them, right? Like, so they're going to need additional support, additional financial support from the government. They're going to then have to pay the private companies that we're paying. It's just another stepping stone. It's not going to save the government money because people are still going to need to, unless we're just going to let everyone die, which I guess is the usual kind of plan.
I mean, we actually kind of go.
I guess, yeah, no, my bad. I take that back. That is the plan. That's exactly what the plan is. But the comment still stands.
I'm excited to say that Turn Left has significantly grown this year, And with that, we've managed to produce far more ambitious content, interviewing high-profile people. We did a 12-hour live election show. There are multiple people behind Turn Left, but we are still working around our full-time work. But we would love it if this was our full-time. It means we could dedicate so much more and to bring even more ambitious content. So if you've been here from the beginning, or you've only recently become a viewer, if you like what we do, then you can help us out. Please like and share this video. Make sure you drop a comment. We want to hear your thoughts. We want to hear your feedback. And we desperately need more independent media. If you want to see a socialist media alternative thrive, then you could be part of that. So if you can support us on Patreon for £3 or £5 per month, or any one-off donation. We can use that money to upgrade our equipment, to rent out a proper studio, and to start paying ourselves. This is only the beginning. Thank you for watching, and we'll see you next time.
Patreon.com, Turn Left Media. Support independent media. Support social justice that's there on social media. Thank you, Turn Left.